Mic check, mic check. Alright, I had to blow the dust off this mic. Sorry. It's been a minute since I've streamed. Alright, so we are roster editing. I went through and I edited every single attribute for the 76ers. That took like 3 days because I wanted to handwrite everything. I did all that last week. I just haven't had the energy to put out the video that I was going to put out, which I thought I was going to do maybe this weekend, but then last night I decided I'm kind of behind. I've only focused on one team. Let me at least knock out a lot of my base information for the game before like the season starts. So I'm going to be focusing on just like adding a couple guys to the game and modding a lot of positions, taking down the default information, a lot of stuff that I consider important to my work for the current year, and then I'll start doing like team-specific content. Probably like the Sixers video that I want to make is probably going to be like an hour, I want to say. Maybe more, like long-form podcast content. I'm not with the quick hitters. If y'all know anything about me, we could talk about this shit for hours on end. So, anyway, let's get started with Chicago. Oh, and I did also Milwaukee, just adjusted their positions and added in the two-way guys. Put the guys on non-guaranteed contracts on the Euro stashes, as they're not like guaranteed to make the team. Technically, Mamadi Diakite is also a non-guaranteed, but I do anticipate he'll make the team, so leaving him as such. Also, sliced my finger open at work yesterday. Probably the worst I've ever cut my finger. I'm definitely not going to show pictures of that. Looks a little gnarly. It's still healing. I took the Band-Aid off. I'm going to be typing on my keyboard and everything with a fucked up finger. So if I disappear for a couple minutes, it's because it started bleeding again, but I don't anticipate it's going to happen. Right now it's still just like kind of taking a while to heal. A little deeper than your average cut, but I'm fine. No pain or anything. Alright. So all of that background info out of the way. Let's start with the Bulls. And, oops. I just deleted the entire Bulls team from my Google Sheet, which is not displayed today. I'm coming up with... I thought about maybe releasing that sheet on like a Patreon or something. The people that support me, I want to pay like $50 or something, they could access that document. It's probably the best document that there's ever been in 2K, as it's something that I've been building on for like the last couple of years. A lot of roster documents typically don't last that long. You know, they're usually like something that gets updated for maybe once or twice. But my document's always been a living document compared to like the 2K roster itself. Alright, so let's do the defaults. 85. DeRozan's down 2. Vooch is down 2. Lonzo's up 1. Kobe White's up 2. Caruso's up 3. That's good. Patrick Williams, same. Derrick Jones, down 1. Bradley is down 2. I'm going to turn my mic up a little bit. because I sometimes I'm talking to myself, and you guys can't necessarily hear all that. I'm not usually checking my volume, so my internal volume, I mean. Arlise Johnson is up 2. Javante Green. Stanley Johnson, he's fine. Troy Brown down 1. That's pretty fucking low for him. Matt Thomas. Dasunmo. Where's Dotson? Dotson's +1. Okay. All right, let me check these archetypes. There's a couple new ones this year. Like Brooke Lopez is a 2-way inside the arc scorer. They might have just like relabeled interior force. I haven't gone through to like check any of the different ones, but they've also changed. It seems like they've changed a lot of how some of them collate. Like Bobby Portis probably doesn't have too much change with them, but he's a stretch glass cleaner. Them, you can't really get the deep. I already did them, so there's no default information on them. But like, for example, a lot of guys were 3-point specialists last year, and now they are quote unquote shooters. And I think that's because their mid-range rating is high. Yeah, so if we go above a 75, he becomes a shooter, which is just signifying that he's not just a specialist, he's a mid-range and 3-point. If we go like this, he becomes, at some point he becomes like a, yeah. Or shot creator, yeah. So previously, shooter was only if you were like bad at shooting. Like if you had a low 3-point rating, you'd be considered a quote unquote shooter. But so they changed how some of these classifications show up. We see here, yeah, Patrick Williams is a shooter. 85 mid, 81 3, whatever. Facilitating 3-level scorer. That looks like a new type also. Yeah, Matt Thomas, same deal. Shooter instead of specialist. Yeah, it doesn't seem like 3-point specialist used to be like the most common type, and now it looks like it's just completely gone. We have 3-point shooter is probably what 3-point specialist is. Or no, we saw 3-point specialist on Grayson Allen before, so... Oh, because his 3-point rating is under 77, or under 80, rather. Like, if we go like this, he probably becomes a specialist. Yeah, there we go. All right. Got it. All right, well, anyway, he's still a scoring machine. Vooch is now a facilitating 3-level scorer. Basically implying that his pass ratings are meet a certain threshold. DeMar DeRozan is a slasher. Last year he was a slashing playmaker. I'll have to check out his pass ratings to see if something changed there. Two-way playmaker, yep. Kobe White, shot creator. Yeah, last year he was mid-range shot creator. Caruso, perimeter lockdown. Yeah, last year Caruso was a 3-point specialist. So either his defensive ratings changed, which is probable given that his rating went up 3 points, or because of the change they made to the 3-point. His defense is just his most important attribute. Williams 75. Shooter. Yeah, last year he was a sharpshooter. Yeah, 85 mid, 81 3. That would have got him classified as a sharpshooter last year. If you were above 80 in like both of these, basically a sharpshooter.
Be right back with Mike.
Alrighty. Sorry about that. Alright, got all my defaults down. What positions are we changing, if anything? Let's start over here. there's no way one of these two guys is going to become a two guard, and I'm not sure which one, or maybe it's him. Kobe White's out for like the first month of the year, I think, so I'm going to deactivate him also. Evaluated in 4 months. June 10th plus 4 months is October, right? Yeah. So October 10th, and that's reevaluated. The season starts around then. So he's probably gonna miss about a month. Thinking he's probably going to be the two guard, even though like they gave him, he just may not be with the team. I don't know. I anticipate he's going to get traded. I guess he can't get traded while he's hurt. I mean, he can, but his value's not going to be high. 2021 point guard. Default. He wasn't even a two guard at all last year, though, as far as I can tell. Like 10% of his minutes. It's weird. He played two guard his rookie year, and then point guard for the majority of his sophomore season. And now we're switching him back to the two guard, like in advance of the season. There's a little bit of projection going on here. Just kind of based on how I think their depth chart's gonna shake out. Because obviously Lonzo Ball comes in, and the Caruso signing. Caruso's not really like a true point guard, though, but I just anticipate. I don't think he would have a lot of court time with Lonzo Ball, because neither one of them is really a shot creator, which is why I think the Kobe White makes more sense as a two guard. Like in the lineups with Lonzo Ball, he's definitely going to be the two guard. And in the lineups with Caruso, he'll be the primary ball handler. Like, he'll be the point guard on offense, but I anticipate he'd still be like a two guard on defense, and let Caruso just take point of attack on the defensive end. And I don't really anticipate like Kobe White getting a ton of minutes with Zach LaVine. He's pretty much Zach LaVine's backup, because they're both volume scorers, and like it makes sense to have low usage guys next to Zach LaVine. So rather than have like LaVine backed up by like a low usage guy, which kind of throws like everything out of whack, I think this does make sense. I'm not going to adjust anybody's ratings or anything. Just focusing on positions. Caruso, yeah, so point guard, shooting guard. Lonzo Ball, was he a shooting guard at all last year? 15% of his minutes in 2020, 7% last year, so yeah, I'm going to take that off of him. As I would in any minutes and any lineups where he shares the court with Caruso. Caruso's going to be the two guard. I don't think there's anybody I don't think he's ever going to play with Dotson. Yeah, I don't foresee any lineups where Lonzo Ball's playing two guard with the Bulls. Okay. Matt Thomas may not make the team. He's got point guard at his secondary. That's like technically true, but not really. Like, there's a garbage time lineup that Utah used that had Thomas at point guard. But with the Bulls, I don't anticipate that happening, assuming he makes the team. So I'm going to take that off of him. DeRozan. I'll check out his ratings real quick. Well, in a second. Alright, so it looks like one of these guys is going to be the starting power forward. Probably Patrick Williams. But I'm not, like, super thrilled about making this change. I gotta see some lineup data for these guys. Derek Jones is sort of a 4. Like, he's got the game of a 4 because he's not good enough at, like, small forward type things. But he definitely played the 3 with the Blazers last year. Yeah, it's most likely just going to have to be Patrick Williams. It don't make sense to have 4 of these guys coming off the bench. His rebounding wasn't really up to snuff as a rookie. Basketball Reference basically says that he had a 60-40 split as a small forward, power forward last year. Let me see how accurate that is. His most common lineup was, he was a 4 with White, Zach, Temple at the guards, and then Williams and Wendell Carter up front. Second most used lineup was Vooch and Tice, Williams at the 3, and then Temple and White at the guards. After that, it was Carter and Markkanen up front, Vooch and Young, Markkanen, Young and Williams, Carter and Otto Porter. So I guess we're considering Williams a 4 in that lineup. He was a 4 mostly in like the when Wendell Carter was still on the team, it looks like. And when Tice came on, he took a lot of the 4 minutes. Because then they had Tice and Thaddeus Young, so yeah, they didn't really need Patrick Williams at the 4. But Tice is no longer there, neither is Thaddeus Young, so yeah, it looks like we are... It's a similar situation with Kobe White. We're changing Williams' position in advance, anticipating that he won't get the same amount of minutes, or he just won't have the same. Yeah, the three is clogged up. might change my mind in a week. We'll find out during like training camp. And that doesn't change his rating at all, but it does change his archetype from shooter to stretch 4. This is basically the same thing. Stretch 4 was 3-point specialist for the power forward position. And now we have 3. All these guys are on non-guaranteed deals. Let me just finish here. Yeah, these are fine. I anticipate that both Elise Johnson and Stanley Johnson will make the team. And then Tyler Cook will be on a 2-way. That's the way things are kind of shaking out. And Matt Thomas won't make the team. But basically it's, I don't think he's eligible for a 2-way. No, he's already 6-year pro, jeez. He's still eligible. Technically he's eligible, so like, but I don't know, he's 26, he had international career a little bit before. I don't think he'd be willing to take a 2-way, so yeah, I just anticipate he's going to get the 2-way, and then it's going to be between Johnson and Thomas for the last rotation spot, or for the last roster spot. And 3-point shooting is a valuable skill. And the Bulls aren't exactly loaded with shooters. So, I mean, he could stick with the team. They could make they could make a move during camp to open a roster spot also. But as currently constructed, I don't expect Matt Thomas to make the team. As far as positions, nope. No, sir. Small forward default. Center. 6'8", 255. And honestly, he was like a small forward in his rookie year, but not really since then. Let me just double check. Actually, he played. All right, yeah. He did not play any 3 in his first season with Toronto in 2020, but then he played like half his minutes at the 3 last year. Let me just verify. Yeah, Birch, Gillespie, Johnson, Birch, Siakam, Johnson. Yeah. Okay, so we'll list him as a 3. Simonovic. I'll tentatively leave this here. I don't know. Maybe, yeah, I mean, like, in the garbage time lineups, yeah, he'll play next to Tony Bradley, maybe. But I don't anticipate that happening a ton. But it could. They don't... Really, all their 3s are like, or all their 4s are former 3s. So he has like some size, I guess. I don't know. All right, let me see. Well, that makes sense. All right, so they are limiting Caruso, DeRozan a little bit, Vooch a little bit. That's interesting. They have Elise Johnson as like this is them overrating him. I have the opposite problem where like I need to minimize him and he still comes out at like a 78 because he's so productive when he's on the court. It looks like they probably have his athleticism way too low, 35 defensive consistency and offensive consistency. Yeah, the consistency ratings clearly go up a bit. Where's DeRozan? I said I was going to look at his pass ratings. 75 accuracy. Well, his pass ratings are fine. I wonder if... Yeah, they're just a little low. Yeah. I'll probably... When I edit him, he'll probably end up as a slashing playmaker. Okay, so this team has an interesting dilemma. Their bench sucks. Especially with Kobe White's sideline. Did his rating go down when I switched his position? That's interesting. Hold on. That never happens. So they definitely changed the formula a little bit, which is a great development. Previously, if you switched a point guard's rating to shooting guard, it always went up like 1 to 2 points. So this is the first time I've ever seen a 2 guard go down from their primary position. Yeah, wow. All right, cool. So they changed the formula. But not in a meaningful way. Not in a meaningful way if Kobe White's fucking coming out as a 79 at small forward. And power forward. Oh my god. I mean, so they changed the power forward formula also. It does seem that fours also had like a similar, like, they had the opposite problem as like threes, in that when you changed a guy from the 3 to a 4, his rating would drop usually, because they weren't factoring it up for the perimeter skills. So it looks like they fixed that. But... yeah, somehow... How the fuck is 2 guard Kobe White's worst position?
Do you know how to face scan?
No. I do not know how to face scan. Do you mean for like myself or for like caps and stuff? Is that a next gen feature or current gen or? I'm a spreadsheet wizard, not a...
For Nintendo Switch.
For Nintendo Switch, definitely not. This is on PS4. Oh, I gotta adjust player ages. 2, 1, 24, 6, 20, 31. The reason I'm adjusting these ages is I prefer to get everything in line with like the way Basketball Reference handles player ages. As the way that 2K handles ages is pretty bad, honestly. They use like a random date in the summertime to calculate their age. That's why only half of these guys are going up. Because they use like the midpoint of the year. It just like once you start getting into like the historic teams, that whole system kind of breaks down a little bit. I've noticed. Like the way that general managers evaluate player ages, because that's basically why we're adjusting our ratings, right, and our rosters. It's for like actual roster management. They evaluate player ages based on the year that they're in, not like when their actual birthday is. You know, like age 26 season for player X, etc. All right, that's Chicago. Their ratings are trash, to be honest. These three guys I'd probably bump up like a point or two each. Kobe White's hurt. He probably goes up a little bit. As we discussed, his rating's probably a little low at the 2 guard. And he's like penciled in as their 6th man.
You edit classic teams and players too.
They don't really have too much beyond that. Like all these guys are maybe going to make the team. The bottom 10 guys are pretty fringe. Elise Johnson himself is kind of fringe and unproven. Derek Jones did not have a great year. Like, who's the 8th man on this team? I think Derek Jones Jr. is the 7th. Like, Caruso, White, who's hurt, Caruso, and Derek Jones are like the top 3 bench guys, which is not inspiring. I think they're going to have a lot of depth issues this year. And if one of the big 4 on this team gets hurt, they'll probably struggle a little bit. Though most of them have been pretty durable throughout their careers. But like, who the 5th guy is in this lineup is really the biggest X factor. They need Patrick Williams to take a huge step forward in order for them to be like contenders. All right. What was that question? Do you edit classic teams and players too? When I have time. I don't necessarily... It's definitely not a priority. It's like a side project. There's like 100 classic teams in the game, or something less than that, like 70. Maybe I'll do like a couple a year. I'll go in and like readjust and then save my progress for the following year. Like eventually I'll have all of them done. But the way that I edit, like the NBA, the full NBA roster itself is editing that is very time consuming. So basically, I only edit classic teams when I want to like take a break and have some fun. have to. Sometimes I usually embark on that quest when I'm like answering a question for myself. Like I read something on a forum that made me think about something, and then I just let me adjust this guy and see what he kind of looks like, and then I just do the rest of the team. All right, let's see Cleveland. Clear out my doc of last season's information.
Yay, I see your Wizards MJ rating is really spot on.
Thank you. I guess that would be an example of classic team stuff. I spent more time working on like the all-time stuff than the classics. I'm more or less just like fleshing out my documents. As all that information carries over, and I find it interesting to like look at the all-time teams and figure out exactly who those guys would be, why 2K may or may not have a certain player. Usually it's because like somebody passed away or whatnot, but in a perfect world, who would be on the roster, etc. And those exercises I'm actually learning stuff because I'm not too familiar with like a lot of the guys from the 70s and even some of them from the 80s. Alright, 3-point playmaker. Last year he was an inside-out playmaker. Once again, touching on, they changed the archetypes a little bit. Let's see, last year he was a floor spacing slasher. Now he's just a slasher. Glass cleaning lockdown. That's what it was before. Jared Allen's down 2. Sexton's down 1. Darius Garland is the same. So they have 3 guys who are 82. I would consider Sexton and Jared Allen better than Darius Garland. If anything, I actually had Garland at an 80 last year. I think 82 is like, there's a lot of projection going on there to consider him like the best guy on the team. Yeah, they're probably going to go up. Markkanen, he should have a good year for them now that he's out of Chicago. Mobley's a 78. Power forward. Default equals glass cleaner. 7 foot 215. Kevin Love, 78. Okay. He's down a point. And he's really the wrinkle that I guess the X factor you would say in this Cavs team. Kind of what they do with their power forward spot. They made Evan Mobley a power forward prior to like the team acquiring Markkanen. I'm pretty sure that Mobley's actually going to be a center this year, but I'll go over that once I do their positions. Rubio, let me nab him from the Wolves. He's kind of in an interesting spot in that I think that he's probably, in the grand scheme, he's probably a better player than Darius Garland, but he's not going to start. Because of the direction of the team. Okoro is up points. Windler. Where the heck is he? Right here. Shooting guard default. He did not have a good year this year. I think he's even hurt also. Google. Dylan Windler. News. Report Dylan Windler could miss start of training camp. But not this, well, just training camp. It's just the start of training camp. So I'll leave him active. We'll adjust based on later reports. Dean Wade, power forward. Stretch 4, yep. He's down a point. Wow, they tanked Jetty Osman. Point forward. Okay, great. Previously, he was a well-rounded wing. Point forward wasn't really an archetype that existed. So good to see it here. Hopefully it becomes a little more common. Denzel Valentine also played with the Bulls last year, along with Markkanen. Stevens, I'll probably switch to the 3. Roderick Thomas, perimeter defender, sure. Cabangele. Will probably be a stretch 5 by the time I'm done with him. Taco Fall is a glass cleaner. Where is he? I gotta get him from the Celtics. Glass cleaner. Sure. Get retained. Just cleaning up my Excel doc. Larry Nance too. That's right. Okay. Moved on from Larry Nance, Taurean Prince, Damian Dotson, Matt Deldova, Isaiah Hartenstein, and two-way Jeremiah Martin. We have to add Kevin Pangos, who signed, he's an international player. And no other rookies, right? Let me check contracts real quick. Actually, I guess I should have done that for the Bulls too. Let's see if there's any contracts to look off. He's fine. Oh yeah. The other thing that I do is I remove the team options from first round picks because the way that the way that those options work is different from. What was that? What I got a yo. Oh, okay. This series is weird. The fuck was I saying? Jeez, she's very jarring sometimes. So I removed the options from first round picks because those structurally work differently than the way that 2K handles options. 2K handles options at the end of the year, whereas the contract options for first round picks are actually handled at the start of a given year, and in the vast majority of the time, they do get picked up, especially with this current iteration of the CBA. Like you have to be a bust in order to get your option declined, and teams are drafting a lot better now. Like they're not really busting like they were before. And even when they do, like teams are still willing to like take a flyer on them because you can trade the player at the salary slot. Like there's no real reason to like let go of the guys. So I removed Kobe White's contract option because essentially he's on a 2-year deal. There's no chance that the Bulls decline his option. So I'm just taking away the option from the computer to make a stupid decision, and B, presenting the information in a more accurate manner as it changes his on-screen contract from 1 year to 2 years, which is more reflective of his situation. So Patrick Williams, he's not on a 1-year deal. He's got 3 more years left. In actuality, this option is going to be decided on a month from now. That's the other reason I'm changing it. Like by the time the season starts, this won't even be a 2-year option. It's going to be a 1-year option. So, yeah. And in order to get it to change, on screen, you need to adjust like that, or else it'll just still show as the 1 year, which is why I do that. So yeah, 3-year deal for Patrick Williams. Tony Bradley has a player option in his second year.
Just asking, what would you rate Vid Krejci?
I have no idea. I didn't do any research on him. Probably like 70 offhand. If he's projecting to be like a third string.
What is your take on Ben Simmons in the 76ers situation?
I have a whole video coming out on that eventually. I'm going to talk like 1 to 2 hours on it. They're in a very interesting situation. Let's put it that way. Elise Johnson, which I guess I could touch on a little bit, but so Ben Simmons, here's the thing. He ain't a point guard. He ain't a point guard. When you look at his when you look at his production and stuff, like he doesn't run pick and rolls. He's more Draymond Green than he is like an actual point guard. He is a point forward. He's a point center, if anything. And you can't play him with Embiid because Embiid's a center. Um, he's basically like if you took Russell Westbrook and put him on this team also, it'd be the same issues. Just because
He is better at the PF4SF.
Simmons is more of an extreme, like his shooting woes are more of an extreme than Westbrook, but like Westbrook would be like a 73 and a 75, but it would still be the same issues. Like you'd go under screens and stuff, and he's a transition player, and you're playing with like the best half court player in the NBA in Joel Embiid, so like it's just a clash of styles. And at 6'11", 240, Simmons is basically a 5. Similar to like the way that the Rockets were when they had Westbrook, they ran him basically as a .5. They traded Clint Capella so that they could run Westbrook as a .5 because it was the same issue. Like they couldn't play Westbrook and Capella together. So they got to make that change, but they also need a point guard because they don't really have a true point guard behind him. Like if they move Simmons, let's say that Simmons sits out, doesn't play at all. What happens with this team? Well, they got Maxey and like the next Frank Ntilikina behind him, so they definitely need a point guard back. Like they could move Seth Curry to like the 1, which would make sense a little bit because they don't need a true playmaker when they have like the modern Hakeem Olajuwon up front in Joel Embiid. Tobias Harris can handle the ball some. And Shake Milton's really like a combo guard. But they could move Curry to the 1 and then like move Tybalt to the 2 and then start Danny Green. So let's branch real quick. Sure, Twisted Knee, whatever. That's so annoying to look at. That's why I always put personal reasons rather than in actual injury.
The only way the 76ers will work is if Seth Curry run at the 1, Shake Milton or Danny Green at the 2, Tobias Harris at the 3, Ben Simmons at...
Oh, oops, hold on. I don't probably have to do that. Just do that. There we go. Where the fuck is Seth Curry? Well, I mean...
They would win the number 1 seed again.
Yeah, I can see this being their lineup if Simmons like sat out. And I think this would be very good. Like they've got a great defensive combo on the wings. Because here's the reality of what their team actually is. He's a center or a power forward. So they need a point guard back, even though he's not a point guard. So like D'Angelo Russell has kind of been linked to them if he like goes to Minnesota or whatever. Maybe that makes sense. I wouldn't be thrilled about it. Like it's very difficult to make a Simmons trade work, which is why it hasn't happened. Because any team that's going to be acquiring him is going to want him as a playmaker, but that probably means that they don't have a playmaker to send back, because that's what the Sixers need, even though they don't have... They're sending out an all-star point guard.
2021-2022 Lakers.
They're sending out an all-star point guard, but he's not really a point guard. Which is kind of the dilemma that they're in. But they don't really need a point. They just need somebody better than Seth Curry. They're going to have to move somebody else probably in a Simmons deal. But I don't know if John Wall makes sense either. Maybe John. I think the part of the reason that the John Wall thing was announced was like I anticipate Wall possibly being part of like a Simmons deal, but not Wall going to the Sixers. But he'd be, it'd be like a 3-team kind of thing. Let me undo what I did. Alright, I gotta take off the injury. Okay. What was one of those questions? Hold on. The only way the Sixers will work is if Seth Curry runs at the 1, Shake Milton or Danny Green at the 2, Tobias at the 3, Ben Simmons at the 4, and Embiid at the 5. No, I don't think that Simmons, even at the 4, really works with Embiid. That's basically what they did during the playoffs. Like, Simmons would bring the ball up, give it up, and then head to the low block, while Embiid would be at like the top of the key, taking like a contested mid-range jumper, while Simmons is just like in no man's land waiting for the ball.
I think they should trade Ben for Wall and Gordon in SF.
Part of it is just like Doc Rivers is not a good offensive coach. He's just too old school. Like, yes, it works out that the Sixers have a traditional, like, old school big man for them to build around, but he just doesn't know. He's got no creativity offensively. Doc Rivers does. So he's got a dynamic transition player that he has no idea how to utilize, and hasn't been willing. Like, they should at least be, if Simmons and Embiid can't play together, then they should be staggering their minutes. And if they can't play together, then like there was no point in bringing in like Andre Drummond, right? Because they don't even need, like, what is
Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid is like Domantas Sabonis and Miles Turner, just not working together.
Like, if you staggered, no matter who you played Simmons with, even if he wasn't playing with Embiid, then he's sharing the court with like Andre Drummond. You just have too many non-shooters. I would just run Simmons as like a backup 5, and then you could have just not signed Drummond. And the funny thing is, so your comment after that is they would win the number 1 seed again. I mean, with Simmons, they're probably going to win the number 1 seed again.
Doc won his ring because KG and Ray Allen were in the last seasons of their primes.
It's, the Sixers are still a good team. They were the number 1 seed for a reason. It's just like come playoff time, they're easy to guard because they have a critical flaw that their coach honestly makes worse because he hasn't been able to find the answer.
Tears. Emoji happy tears.
What's my take on the 21-22 Lakers? I'm going to get to that. That's part of the reason why I wanted to like work on the positions and stuff for these teams. They should be good with everybody bumped up a position. It does make a lot of sense. I don't know what the fuck they got. Well, I guess they have DeAndre Jordan, just like their third string center. It does make some sense now that, like, when they let go of Gasol to bring in DeAndre Jordan, I was like, how are they like why do they keep bringing in these bigs that can't shoot when they have Russell Westbrook on the court? Because it's the same problem that we just discussed with the Sixers, right? Like they have no spacing with like a point guard and a center on the court. But if you're going to bump Davis up to the 5 and LeBron up to the 4, then all of a sudden you got not only do you have spacing, but you have a transition team.
Sixers need a half-court scorer.
They have a transition team which feeds into Westbrook's transition tendencies. So they're going to run quite a bit more than they did the last couple of years.
Picking up anyone but a shooter.
And it's going to be very interesting to look at LeBron this year because this is the first year that he's going to be like not the man. He's going to be just another cog in the machine. Just not just another cog, but like he's going to be the receiver finally for the first time in his career rather than the one who's like orchestrating the offense and running everything.
Who do you think they will put at 3? THT? He's not averaging over 2.5 points this year.
Either THT or Trevor Ariza. Doc won his ring because KG and Ray Allen were in the last season of their primes. Not necessarily true. I mean, the Celtics were great that year. They had a fantastic defense. And it's not like... the Sixers were a great defensive team this year also. It's not like Doc Rivers can't coach. He does have some redeeming qualities. But... I would say his MO is his teams are usually great defensively and then middling offensively. And that's why it's easy for them to choke during the playoffs, is because their offense will, like, for one reason or another, just end up collapsing, and they just go on a cold stretch. And part of that is probably his unwillingness to adapt. I think that's the biggest criticism of any modern coach that loses like a playoff series now, is like you need to be able to adapt in the NBA, like a Nick Nurse or an Eric Spoelstra. The guys who don't adapt, like the Tom Thibodeaus of the world, who just like run their system, or even like Budenholzer. Like Budenholzer worked out because he had the most talented team this year, / healthiest team.
Doc Rivers didn't he work with the Clippers? I don't see him working with the 76ers.
Doc Rivers did work with the Clippers. Doc Rivers is like one of the most winning... He's top 10 in all time in wins. Like,
Doc has had some better teams on paper than the Celtics squad.
Doc Rivers has 992 career wins in the regular season, 98 playoff wins. The 98 playoff wins is second among active coaches, behind only Greg Popovich, who's obviously... is Greg Popovich the most winning playoff coach? I can't remember. It's either him or Phil Jackson or something. But I digress. Like, Doc Rivers has been a head coach for 22 years. He knows what he's doing. He's got his system, but he's... At the same time, it's difficult for him to adapt from that system. But you see that with a lot of coaches in the NBA. A lot of coaches have their system and they stick with it longer than they should. And making adjustments is the most difficult attribute that I think any coach can have. It's like not only just making the adjustment, but knowing when to make it. I think that's probably what separates the best coaches from, like, the good from the elites. So, like, Doc Rivers is a good coach. He's definitely not a bad coach. But the way that the Sixers are built, they're not going to succeed. They wouldn't be able to succeed without an elite coach who is going to be able to make those adjustments that they need to make when they need to make them. But certainly he wouldn't be getting to the playoffs like every single year of his career if he was a bad coach.
I think the Miami Heat is a top 3 seed this year in the East.
Like, I think Doc's missed the playoffs once in his career, maybe? Or has he? 16, 15, 14... Has Doc Rivers ever missed the playoffs? Three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. No, he's never missed the playoffs. He's made the playoffs 22 consecutive years. So we can't call Doc Rivers a bad coach. That's like out the window. He's obviously very consistent. It's just, he's got his flaw. He's not a perfect coach, but he's certainly a good one. I think the Miami Heat is a top 3 seed this year in the East. Maybe.
Warriors will see themselves in play-in territory this year with full strength.
The Heat being a top 3 seed, I think it's contingent on what they get from Victor Oladipo. I am not expecting... I think PJ Tucker is the most fool's gold player in the NBA. And, yes, it's kind of similar. They have a similar deal as, the Sixers. They're a great defensive team, but offensively, where do they get their offense from? Because PJ Tucker being out there is not going to help them on that end. It's going to put additional pressure on the rest of these guys, and they don't really have a true go-to scorer. We can't call Jimmy Butler a go-to scorer. I appreciate that all these questions came. I have no desire to do the Cavs. So thanks, guys, for giving me a little bit of a break from that. All right. So regaining focus. I got to add Kevin Pangos. Let's do that. Save. All right, how are we going to do this? Create draft class. Historic draft class. How old is he? He's 28. Is that true? Kevin Pangos. Yep, he's 28. Math is hard. This is probably fine. They show up as the same age anyway. Okay. Point guard. Yeah, this guy looks as good as any. Minus the headband. Headbands are not very in vogue, I think.
Their main scoring option is Jimmy Butler. That's not a good look if they want to be a championship contending team.
He's from England. Roger Livingston. Okay. He's actually from Canada, and he went to Gonzaga. Does that mean he qualifies for the world team? I guess so. 0. Birth date January 26th, 1993. Oh, oops. I think every player should have like this as like their peak start, peak end. Like that's just how it works in life. Ooh, did they get rid of the other two attributes, financial security and the other thing? Good. Play for winners, really the only one you need. Boop boop. Sure. Oddly enough, he actually kind of looks like this, minus the headband. So even I don't normally do accessories. I'm taking this headband off. It just looks ridiculous. And height.
Financial security was irrelevant anyways. Good, they got rid of it.
6'1". What's his weight? Is he on the official team page yet? He is, but they don't have a listed weight for him. Dang it. What's Basketball Reference say? 6'1", 181. Okay. And fuck it, might as well do a little bit of info. Based on like the limited international stats I have on him. Alright, what the fuck? Some of these... I know this is like randomly generated, but... That's wild. What player in like fucking history was ever like 80s in all of these and like couldn't shoot free throws? Come on. Alright, so for those who don't know about Kevin Pangos, he averaged 14 points and 7 assists in the EuroLeague last year for St. Petersburg. He played 29 minutes a game. Those were career highs. 85% from the free throw line. He hit 39% from 3. He's 42% for his career from 3, so he's a very good shooter. So I think I'm going to leave them all over there. Doesn't really draw fouls. Given that he's 6'1", 180, obviously does not have like NBA athleticism or anything, but clearly a very skilled player. Get the fuck out of here. Oh my god. What the fuck? Oh my god. The deeper I go into like these draft classes, like the more tilted I get.
I don't know why Luka Doncic 2K rating is so low.
Is it low? I don't know. What's your thesis? What? Again, I know that I picked like just these attributes just like don't line up like gameplay wise.
Should be 9.6.
Should be 96. Why do you think so? Kevin Pangos has blocked 2 shots in his entire life. Most recently in the 2018 season. Wow. Okay, so that infers that his vertical rating is probably fucking bad. What the fuck? What is this? I swear I picked like the funniest random that I possibly could. I hope his tendencies aren't going to be completely out of whack, because I'm not adjusting those. I mean, I don't actually care that much. I'm jumping to next gen as soon as I get a PS5.
I see Luka Doncic winning MVP soon. The Mavs haven't been able to get out of the first round of the playoffs with Luka Doncic because of Porzy.
Yeah, I think he's the biggest favorite to win MVP this year, if I recall. The Mavs haven't been able to get out of the first round of the playoffs, partly because they keep matching up with the Clippers, who are a bad matchup for them. I'm one of the handful of Porzingis defenders out there. I think the Mavericks are building around. I agree that they need to build around Luka properly, but that also means like not building a team completely around him. Like it shouldn't be Luka and 4 shooters, because they basically took Porzingis, who is a good offensive player. He's basically John Collins, just like a better shot. Like he's more equipped to play the center. I don't think he is a good center. I would not play him as a 5 as his primary position. I think
Clippers
last year
are really good. They would be destroyed the Suns' full strength.
I think the mistake the Mavericks are making right now is playing Porzingis as a 5 rather than as a 4, which I think is going to be rectified this year based on how their roster's currently constructed. But he's not too far from being John Collins.
John Collins is overpaid.
Nah, he's fine for what he is. He's like a borderline all-star, which is basically what Porzingis is as well. Like if you took Porzingis, what other two-way like stretch 5s are there in the NBA that are at Porzingis' level? If you go a couple levels below, you've got like the Brook Lopez's of the world, but like and like Serge Ibaka. Like who else are you bringing in? Because this player doesn't really exist. Like the player, like are we going to argue that like Karl Anthony Towns is the player that like Luka Doncic needs in order to succeed? Because the same issues would happen. Like he's going to turn Cat into just like a jump shooter. They're not going to feature him in the post. Porzingis is pissed off, I think rightfully so, because he was getting touches prior to going to the Mavs, and I think as he's played more with Luka, like Luka's star has like taken off to like levels that we didn't really anticipate, and it's just like there's no reason that he should be getting like a 40% usage rate. We saw in the Clipper series both years that like he gets off to these hot starts and like he burns out because you can't play like that for a 48-minute game. You know, eventually you get gassed and you need to rely on other players. So what are you going to do from there? Like, go to like a guy like Porzingis when he's when we haven't gone to him all game? Go to, like, ask Tim Hardaway Jr. to create offense? Like, they need a little more talent than what they've got, but, like, I don't think that Porzingis is the none of this shit matters. I do not subscribe to the common theory that, like, Porzingis is the problem with the team. I think, if anything, we've established that, like, maybe he shouldn't be the second best guy on the team. Maybe he should be the third best guy on the team. But, like, if he was the third best guy on the team, like, what other teams...
Carter Jr. will win Most Improved Player of the Year award.
What other teams have a better third best player than, like, Porzingis? Not really. Only they'd be legit contenders if that were the case. But part of the reason why Porzingis isn't the second star on the team is because they're not utilizing him like the second star on the team. They're utilizing him like Brook Lopez.
That's true.
Where'd this guy go? $71. Export. All right, let's get out of here. Wendell Carter Jr. will win Most Improved Player of the Year award. It's possible. He's not who I would pick. Certainly he can get minutes. He has to stay healthy in order to do that. Wendell Carter Jr. will either win Most Improved Player or lose his starting job to Robin Lopez. Who also played with him on the Bulls, interestingly enough, and is a significantly better post player than Wendell Carter Jr., I might add. I think Robin Lopez is probably the most underrated player in the league over the last, like, 3 years, like, relative to, like, the role that he's played versus, like, his actual, like, effectiveness on the court. Like, he might be... He's probably, like, a top 5 post player in the NBA, which is kind of, like, absurd to think about, but, like, it's actually that good. And it just goes to show, like, how far away from, like, posting up teams have gone. I think he's a better post player than Nik Vucevic. Or at least a post scorer, but you wouldn't utilize... Like, Vucevic obviously does, like, 16 other things better than Robin Lopez. Robin Lopez is, like, a post specialist in a world where...
Nets improved overall this year, but will still lose in the playoffs.
Robin Lopez is like Boban Marjanovic, except he can play defense and isn't just like a meme player. What am I doing? Copy to team. All right, and I think for our limited information, based I like this. For the limited information that we have, I think we came pretty close to what he actually is. Or at least the role that he's going to start off in. And if he plays well, he's probably going to enter like Pablo Prigioni territory and be in the rotation, and maybe they move Garland or Rubio, maybe Rubio, just like later in the year. I'm sure he'll get more PT in the second half of the year once they trade Rubio or buy him out or whatever the case. I'm gonna do the ages.
I think the Pistons will find themselves in the play-in tournament this year. A lot of people have already counted them out.
That is a +1, if I'm not mistaken. Oh no, it is a 20. Okay. Never mind. Valentine. Stevens. Taco's already 26. Yeah, a lot of these guys are starting to get up there. It's interesting. Like, the core of this team is young. And then, like, everybody else who's, like... Everybody else is just, like, on the fringes of the NBA, like, in their mid-20s. Alright, let's start with the point guards. Let me take that question before we catch up to that. That's improved overall this year, but we'll still lose in the playoffs. That's possible. I'm not going to project. The playoffs is 9 months from now, so it's not really worth projecting. They could sign even more guys during the year, you know. I think the Pistons will find themselves in the play-in tournament this year. A lot of people have already counted them out. I don't think that's very probable. I think Kate Cunningham would have to be a Luka level player right off the bat for them to even have a chance. But after that, like, they're still very lacking in talent. I'm a fan of Kelly Olynyk. I think he's very underrated. Jeremy Grant's okay. Sadiq Bey should take a small step forward this year. And I'd consider Cunningham a 2. And like, I like Corey Joseph as a starter next to Cunningham, but not so much Killian Hayes. I don't think this is a good fit at all. I don't think Lee can really play next to Cunningham either. They don't really have much of anything else of note at like the 2 guard spot. He's really a 3. And they have no front court depth.
Kelly should be running the starting 5 for the Pistons.
Like, I think the upside of this team is like a 30-win team, which is good. You know, they're taking steps forward. But I'm like, I guess to be in the play-in, they would have to win like 36 games or something like that to be like the 10th seed or whatever. I don't know. Certainly I wouldn't like anticipate them getting any higher than that, but yeah, I'm surely stranger things have happened, but it's not that I wouldn't bet on it. I think it's 90% likely that the Pistons don't really get much further than like 30 wins. Anything else would be like a Christmas miracle. Those do happen in sports, but yeah, geez, this team's a fucking mess. Okay. Let's also look at their intangibles to see who's getting buffed up. Yeah, that makes sense. This 95. That explains why his rating is high. Okoro's... Conversely, like, Okoro being a 95 intangibles, like, if you took this off of him, his rating is what, like a 70? Like, they couldn't be bothered to adjust his defensive ratings, maybe? To compensate? Like, those are... I can't stand when I find this rating and it's just like a band-aid rather than like being used to actually fix the formula. Like here, in a sense, it's like fixing the formula because they want him. If he didn't have this, he'd be in like the low 60s. But this in itself is kind of a band-aid because they'd rather not go through and like figure out what to boost on him. They don't want to give him like a maxed out strength rating, which I have no problem giving to him. He's fucking 6'7", 311 pounds. Like, who in the NBA is stronger than Taco Fall? But I digress.
Cavaliers have way too many big men.
And like here, it makes sense to use it on like Kevin Love, so you can decrease his rating and get him out of like the starting lineup. That's a proper usage of the intangibles rating. Because on paper, he's still a starting caliber player. But we need to decrease him in order to not get him to be like the best guy on the team. So here, this makes sense. This here is an intangibles rating that is not a band-aid. It is proper usage. This is a band-aid. Positions are fine. He will probably... One of these two guys is going to have two guard as their secondary position during the year. Probably Garland. I don't know. I'm going to wait for it to happen first. It may not happen at all. Maybe these guys have like a 28-20 split. It's going to depend on like if Rubio's assist rate drops, it means I'm going to be counting him as like a two guard in those lineups. But if he's the one that's like orchestrating the offense and whatnot, and Garland's operating in like the same role as like Sexton, then I can see changing that. Yeah, these are fine. He might be a point guard as his secondary. No, it looks like I actually don't have any secondary for him. So maybe I take that away. Let me just see his lineup real quick. Well, he has... Yeah, maybe point guard is supposed to be his secondary. I gotta see the lineup data. So with the Cavs, he has a bunch of lineups with Colin Sexton, where you could argue that maybe Thomas is the one there if we're counting Sexton as a 2, but I'm pretty sure that Sexton's just playing the 1 there. Because then we have a lineup with Garland, Sexton, and Thomas, where Thomas is effectively the 3. So Basketball Reference is like collating him as a point guard in like various lineups. But well, he is a point guard here in like a Thomas, Okoro, Dotson, Wade, and Kevin Gale. But that only pops up once. Yeah, that only pops up once, and Sexton is in all the rest of his lineups. Or Jeremiah Martin. And the fact that Jeremiah Martin was a point guard. Yeah, it's two guard small forwards. Fine-ish. I'm going to take off. We'll leave it on. I'll leave on the secondary, since he did have that 1 lineup with Sexton in the 3-guard alignment. He's a 2-way player, so it doesn't really matter. Dylan Windler, like, he was a small forward in college pretty much, but I think he's lining up to just be a 2-guard in the NBA. We'll leave him here. Denzel Valentine getting added allows that to play out. Well, hold on. Yeah, so they only have two guards. And he, like I mentioned, he's really more of a 3. So I think I'm actually switching over one of these guys. And I think long term it's supposed to be Okoro. But that would require them to move on from Colin Sexton, I think. Which they have not. I think they've wanted to this year, but they couldn't find a taker.
Colin might be traded this year.
Yeah, he didn't sign an extension. I think they're okay with going with Garland as like their 1 of the future. Because his problem is he basically just doesn't have a position. He should be a microwave scorer off the bench somewhere, or he needs to learn how to play point guard and be a starting point guard somewhere. Yeah, so what is it with this microphone? So we're going to be moving him to center. As when I watched tape of him, he just kept reminding me of like Chris Boucher, but good. He's a very good rim protector. And a solid post player. So I think he makes a lot of sense as like Jared Allen's backup. Because obviously the Cavs don't really have a backup 5 unless we're counting Kevin Love or Markkanen, who looked awful as the backup 5 for the Bulls last year. Like, he's not a rim protector at all. Markkanen and Kevin Love are the same player in that regard. And if anything, that actually handcuffs. So you've got your best.
Mobley was a good up pick for the Cavaliers.
Yeah, you've got your best two defenders. Or you have. They're always going to have a good defensive center on the court to pair with a subpar defensive player at the 4. If you stagger it that way, I think that's good. And here's the catch: is I think Lamar Stevens is actually more of a 3 than a 4. Which makes sense. 6'6", 230, you know. He's basically Kawhi size. He's a 3 with the game of a 4. So I think this is fine. Both of these guys, I'm going to Euro stash him. I think Tim and Taco are going for the same roster spot. They're both on the bubble. Technically, he's on the bubble too. His contract's non-guaranteed, but he's a little more established than these two guys are. I think he's non-guaranteed too. I gotta check out their contract situation. Actually, no, I think he's guaranteed. Well, so yeah, they have 4 small forwards off their bench, and then two guards. So I think we're considering one of these guys a 2. And it would be Sexton. I mean, it would be Okoro if not for the presence of Sexton. Like, he's definitely starting at the 3 is the issue, but... And I'm not really keen on... Maybe I could switch Denzel Valentine to the 2 from the 3. I guess maybe that's possible. He more or less had like a 60-40 split, it looks like, last year. A 60-40 like small forward shooting guard. He played 2 guard, according to the Basketball Reference, you know, estimates, which are not... I'm very clear that those are estimates. And then you have to look at each specific year to see how much how accurate that really was. But he played 2 guard as a rookie, and then spent like 90% of his time at the 3 since. But then last year he was like close to 50-50. The thing is, last year was also like his best rebounding season. He's a very good rebounding guard. But beyond that, like, he doesn't drive at all. Like, he definitely has the offensive game of a 2 rather than a 3. I think I'm talking myself into it. Let me just see his lineups for last year to make sure that it, like, a 40-60 split. I made that change with somebody, Patrick Williams, before. All right, so his with the Bulls, Kobe, Temple, Valentine, Arch, Kobe, Valentine, Sato, Levine, Temple, Valentine. He's actually a 4 in that lineup, which is fucking wild that we're going to be changing him to a 2. Levine, Sato, or Sato, Levine, Valentine. Sato, Valentine, Troy Brown. Kobe, Levine, Valentine. Arch, Sato, Valentine. Kobe, Sato, Valentine. Kobe, Levine, Valentine. Arch, Sato, Valentine. Yeah, so he was a 3. It feels like a lot more than 60% of the time. But whatever. Small forward default. And it does make sense because they did cut Damian Dotson also to make room for him, and Dotson was definitely a 2 guard. So if we anticipate that he's filling the same role, I think this is fine. And that dropped him 2 points. Great. So basically we're going to have to do that just to get him back to normal. They have small forward as a secondary? That's wild, considering he was a center last year. I think they're fine.
Well, alright, I gotta head out. Good luck finishing up the roster. Take care.
Thanks, Quentin, for stopping by. Much appreciated. Always good to talk hoop with people. All right, Boston. Oh, let me check contracts. Did I do contracts for the Milwaukee Bucks also? I don't think I did. Nice. Looks like 2K cleaned up their contract situation. These are usually pretty fucking bad, but it looks like they finally found a good source to implement these from. Everything has been mostly accurate. Windler is an example of a player that would possibly have their fourth year option declined. As you can make an argument, like, I don't think he's worth $4 million. Certainly not right now. You know, if you're projecting him a year from now, if he stays healthy, maybe he is. But certainly it's a possibility. It's definitely on the fence. Depends on how he looks like in camp. And he's not going to be ready for the start of training camp, so that might be a factor. But at that point, if that gets declined, then it doesn't matter that I put no, because in both instances, we're just removing the year two. This $4 million is just going away. It's not even an option at that point. And yeah, Lamar Stevens is a non-guarantee, as is Dean Wade. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They have 10 guaranteed contracts. Not including Pangos, so 11. Assuming he's guaranteed. He may not be. Alright, Celtics. Alright, gotta get Schroeder. Horford. Cantor, Josh Richardson. Juan Hernangomez. Fernando. Oh my god, their whole team has changed. And even Juan Morgan. My default info. That's a -1, +1. Horford's a -2. Williams a -2. Cantor a -2. Richardson -1. Pritchard +1. Hernan Gomez, same. Jabari Parker -2. Smith, same. Fernando -1. Cornet where is he? -2. Mind-boggling that Grant Williams is like the worst guy on the team. Where's John Morgan? 70. Oh, I guess aside from Langford's, who's a -1. Alright, let's update everybody's age. Alright, Alright, I didn't realize that, like, Horford was the only guy in his 30s on the team. But I guess Cantor has been around for like 10 years. These guys are like 8 or 9 year pros, if anything. Alright, so we're missing Sam Hauser. I'll make a dummy cap in a sec. Here's the thing. So basically, the primary thing with the Celtics is they re-signed Robert Williams this year to a pretty substantial deal. He's going to be the starter. Al Horford is most likely going to play the 4 rather than the 5, which did not work with the 76ers, but was kind of the same problem as, like, we talked about this an hour ago with the Sixers. I love focusing on the Sixers because they're such an interesting team, the way that they're constructed, like the whole Simmons thing. Like, they basically ran a 3-center lineup between Simmons, Horford, and Embiid, you know, which is why they did not really fit together. Horford prefers to play the 4, but obviously that wasn't really possible with the 76ers because Simmons was like a 4. And Robert Williams is not the same type of 5 as Joel Embiid is. He's not a ball-dominant 5. He's like a rim roller. So that allows Horford to, you know, stick with his game plan. And if anything, because Robert Williams is a little undersized, like he's basically a power forward in a center's body, or he's got the game of a 5, but he's in a power forward's body, whereas Horford's got the opposite problem. So I think this pairing works well together, or it will work well, at least better together than like the Horford and Embiid pairing did. Horford won't just be a corner 3-point shooter with the Celtics, which means everybody else in the lineup moves a peg down, which I think is ideal because, like, Jason Tatum is not a 4. He's just not. So he's going to move down to the 3. We're going to move Brown down to the 2. We're going to move Marcus Smart down from the 2 to the 1, and he's probably going to be the starting 1 on this team. If he starts... Well, yeah, so... This is the 2K lineup as currently constructed. You can look at this and be like, on paper, this kind of makes sense. Hey, Peyton Pritchard, backup point guard. Josh Richardson, backup 2 guard. And then you could even argue that, like, Richardson will be the backup 3. also, right? He would need to be getting a lot more minutes than this. Hernan Gomez, he's a 4 also. He shouldn't really be at the 3 here, but I digress. Like, look at the minutes, though, that are assigned to Horford, Williams, and Kanter. 79 center minutes, because the way that, like, 2K handles rotations in this game, it ignores positions and just looks at the overall rating. So, like, we could see that their rotation's completely unbalanced by having these 3 centers. I'm just checking archetype information right now before I start switching guys around. So far, no changes. Tempo pushing guard is a new one. Well, it's not a new archetype, but it's new for him. Two-way, 3-level scorer. Okay. That was previously two-way scoring machine. 3-point shooter. Was previously a stretch 4. That's because his position was the 4. I don't know why he was moved to the 3. Naismith. Three-point shooter. Tatum, scoring machine. Jabari Parker, finisher. Grant Williams, stretch 4. Two-way facilitator. Glass cleaning lockdown. Morgan being a center is interesting. I'll just say that. Alright, so as we mentioned, we're going to adjust Al Horford. We'll make that change also. Is he on a two-way, or is it just assume that he would be? I don't think he's on a two-way. Or maybe that might be preemptive, because I have to add Sam Hauser. I can't do that if they have too many guys on like Eurostashes or whatever. So yeah, this is how I see their roster kind of shaking down. I think Fernando's a candidate to be cut, but it could depend on. I'm not familiar with their luxury tax situation. I think they would prefer to keep Luke Cornett over him, who's currently on like a camp deal. If Cornett plays well, they'll probably bite the bullet and give him Fernando's roster spot. Jabari Parker and Juwan Morgan are probably going for the same job. I think the change from... I think him going from 4 to 3 actually makes sense for this team a little bit. Especially, yeah, like if they were gonna keep Jabari Parker, it would be contingent on Hernangomez playing the 3. Granted, I don't think there's ever a world where I'd want to play Hernangomez and Jabari Parker together on the court at the same time, so maybe that's less than ideal, but like maybe Grant Williams and Hernangomez at the 3 and 4 is a little more feasible, given Williams' defensive prowess. I also don't know if there's a lineup where I'd want to see Jabari Parker on the court with Enes Kanter. Like, Jabari Parker is, like, good enough to be in the NBA. It's just, like, kind of difficult to fit him on a team. So we see changing Smart's position to point guard, dropped his rating. So he is lower than Schroeder. We're going to have to raise him up. You could make an argument for moving Pritchard to the 2, which is where he actually played last year. I do think that physically he's more of a 1. And if you were going to move him to the 2, then you're moving like Josh Richardson or Langford to the 3. And I think if you're moving Richardson to the 3, then you're moving Hernangomez to the 4. But I think now that I visualize this, I think I'm actually on board with this. And Pritchard kind of occupying the 3rd string job. I think his rookie season was a little bit of an outlier. I wouldn't expect him to like replicate it or like build much on it. I can definitely see him falling back to earth a little bit as a sophomore. And like in a world where they didn't sign Schroeder, he's in the rotation clearly as Smart's backup, but because they did, that kind of like hinders his development a little bit. secondaries are basically fine for everyone. I think we might be taking small forward off of Jabari Parker. Yeah, he split his time at the 4 and the 5 last year, according to Basketball Reference. Let's see his lineups. Taco, Cornette. Yeah, his third lineup is like Tatum and Grant Williams are the other guys. So I'm guessing Parker, like one of them is the 5. And Parker's the biggest guy on the court, clearly. Then another lineup with like Parker and Grant Williams again. Parker, Grant, and Tatum. Fall, Parker and Fall, Parker and Fall, Parker and Fall. And then with the Kings, it was like Parker and Bielitsa. And then Parker and Cornette. Clearly in none of these lineups he's a 3. So we'll just go like that. And let's check out Juwan Morgan real quick. Alright, so last year they classified him as a 5-4 for his career. Is like a 60-40 split at center, according to BBR. Oh, he's a clear 5 in this lineup. Does he ever play with Gobert? Or did he? No. Yeah, so I guess we kind of have to... I mean, he played with Udoka Azubuike 30 minutes, so, I mean... And barely played with Gobert, if at all. Yeah, I think maybe they are right to classify him that way. If that's the case, then we're definitely giving him a job. And these two guys are on the fence.